Charlie Chaplin sits across from the most powerful studio executive in Hollywood, listening to words that could end his career. The Tramp is dead, Charlie. People want sound. They want dialogue. They want modern stories. Your little vagrant belongs in the past. What Charlie does in the next 4 minutes doesn't just prove the executive wrong, it creates a moment that redefines what timeless artistry truly means. United Artists Studio, Beverly Hills, California, January 12, 1931. Tuesday morning, 10:30. The mahogany-paneled boardroom overlooks the sprawling lot where Charlie built his empire. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, he can see sound stages where crews work on talkies, the films everyone says represent the future of cinema. Charlie is 41 years old, 20 years since he created the Tramp character, 15 years since he became the most famous entertainer on Earth. But the world is changing faster than he anticipated. The jazz singer opened 4 years ago. Al Jolson's voice singing Mammy marked the end of silent films and the beginning of something Charlie never wanted to embrace. Studios converted to sound almost overnight. Audiences flocked to hear their favorite stars speak. Silent comedians like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd struggled to adapt, their careers withering as quickly as the old technology. Irving Thalberg sits at the head of the conference table, MGM's boy genius, the most successful producer in Hollywood, the man who turned sound films into gold mines. At 32, he's younger than Charlie, but commands respect from every studio head in town. When Thalberg speaks, the industry listens. Charlie, look at the numbers. Thalberg slides a stack of reports across the polished table. The circus made $3.8 million worldwide. Impressive for 1928, but the Broadway Melody made $4.2 million last year, and it was just MGM's first talkie attempt. Audiences want to hear Al Jolson sing, want to hear Greta Garbo speak. They're bored with pantomime. Charlie leafs through the financial documents without comment. The numbers don't lie. Sound films are the future of entertainment. Silent films are becoming artifacts, curiosities, reminders of a primitive era. Your contract with United Artists expires next year. I'm prepared to offer you $2 million to make 3 sound films for MGM. Full dialogue, synchronized music, the works. We'll create a new character for you, someone contemporary, someone relevant to modern audiences. And the Tramp? Retire him. With dignity. Give him a proper farewell. But Charlie, the little Tramp, is dead. Not because he's bad, because he's obsolete. People don't relate to poverty anymore. We're in the jazz age. Prosperity is everywhere. Nobody wants to see a vagrant stumbling through modern life. They want sophistication, glamour, progress. Charlie sets down the reports. You're asking me to abandon everything I've built. I'm asking you to evolve. Every artist faces this choice, adapt or become irrelevant. Look at Douglas Fairbanks. He's struggling because swashbuckling adventures seem ridiculous with sound. Look at Emil Jannings. His German accent killed his American career overnight. Don't make their mistake. Thalberg leans forward, his voice carrying the certainty of someone who's never been wrong about popular taste. Charlie, I've studied every successful transition from silent to sound. The actors who survive are those who embrace change completely. Half measures fail. You can't make a talking film that relies on visual comedy. You can't create a sound character that reminds audiences of your silent work. Clean break, fresh start, or audiences will compare everything to your old stuff. And if I refuse? Then you'll make 1 or 2 more silent films to smaller and smaller audiences until United Artists drops your contract and no other studio will take the risk. The Tramp will die anyway, slowly, pathetically, instead of with dignity. Charlie stands up, walks to the window overlooking the studio lot. He can see construction crews installing sound equipment in Stage 7, the same stage where Charlie filmed the Gold Rush 6 years ago. The silence that once filled those spaces, the creative silence, where pure visual storytelling happened, is being replaced by the mechanical hum of recording devices. Irving, may I show you something? Of course. Charlie walks to the center of the boardroom. No announcement, no preparation, just a subtle shift in posture. His shoulders drop slightly. His feet turn outward. His hands find his pockets. The transformation is almost invisible, but suddenly Charlie Chaplin disappears, and the tramp exists in the sterile boardroom. The tramp notices something wonderful, a single flower growing through a crack in an imaginary sidewalk. His face lights up with childlike wonder. He kneels down, examines it closely, protects it from imaginary foot traffic with his body. A wealthy woman approaches, played by no one but visible to everyone watching. The tramp offers her the flower with genuine generosity. She accepts it, smiles, then continues on her way. The tramp's joy is pure, uncomplicated, beautiful. But then a businessman rushes past, steps on the flower, crushes it. The tramp stares at the destroyed bloom, not with anger, but with profound sadness. He understands something about the fragility of beauty in a world obsessed with progress. The tramp carefully picks up the crushed petals, holds them gently, then lets them go. They drift away on an imaginary wind. He watches them fade, then straightens his imaginary tie, tips his imaginary hat, and walks away with dignity intact, despite the loss. The entire performance lasts 4 minutes. No words, no sound except the whisper of Charlie's movements and the collective silence of a boardroom full of executives witnessing something they didn't expect. When Charlie finishes, he straightens back into himself. The tramp disappears. Charlie Chaplin returns. Thalberg stares. What was that supposed to prove? That some things don't need sound to be understood, that character matters more than technology, that audiences will always need stories about humanity, hope, and dignity, whether they're told with dialogue or silence. Charlie, it was charming, but, Irving, you said people don't relate to poverty anymore. But the tramp isn't about poverty. He's about resilience. You said he's obsolete, but what you just saw, a man finding joy in simple beauty, protecting something fragile, accepting loss with grace, those experiences are timeless. Charlie walks back to the window. Sound films will come and go. Color films, 3D films, whatever technical advancement comes next, but the need for stories that touch something universal in the human heart, that never becomes obsolete. Thalberg removes his glasses, cleans them thoughtfully. The business has changed, Charlie. The business changes every decade. Art remains constant. In 20 years, audiences won't remember the first actor they heard speak on screen, but they'll remember the first time a piece of cinema made them understand something about themselves. You're romanticizing a dying medium. Charlie turns from the window. I'm protecting something worth preserving. Let me make one more silent film. Let me prove that the tramp can speak to modern audiences without saying a word. And if it fails, then I'll make your talking picture. But if it succeeds, if I can prove that character and humanity matter more than technical innovation, you'll understand why some things shouldn't be killed just because they're different. Thalberg considers this. Charlie has made United Artists millions. His international appeal is undeniable. Maybe one final silent film isn't a complete risk. What story would you tell? A love story. The tramp falls in love with a blind flower girl. She thinks he's wealthy. He lets her believe it because it makes her happy. When she gains her sight and discovers the truth, she has to choose between the illusion and the reality. City lights. City lights. The story of how we see each other, how love transforms perception, how dignity exists independent of circumstances. Thalberg makes his decision. One film, silent. But Charlie, if audiences reject it, if critics call it obsolete, if it loses money, you transition to sound immediately. Agreed. City Lights premieres in February 1931. Critics call it Chaplin's masterpiece. Audiences weep at the ending. Box office receipts exceed $5 million worldwide. The film proves that great storytelling transcends technology. But more importantly, it proves Charlie's point about the tramp's immortality. The character isn't just a vagrant from the silent era, he's an archetype. The little man who finds dignity in impossible circumstances, who treats everyone with kindness regardless of their treatment of him, who believes in beauty despite living in ugliness. Thalberg calls Charlie after the premiere. "I was wrong about the tramp being dead. He was never alive, Irving. He's an idea. Ideas don't die because technology changes. They just find new ways to be expressed." Charlie makes Modern Times in 1936 and The Great Dictator in 1940. Both use sound strategically, but rely primarily on visual storytelling. Both succeed critically and commercially. Both prove that the tramp's appeal isn't nostalgic, it's eternal. Years later, when sound films dominate and silent cinema is considered primitive, Charlie's final Tramp films are still studied, still beloved, still relevant. Film students learn about visual narrative from City Lights. Audiences discover the power of silence in a noisy world. The Tramp didn't die when sound came. He evolved, proved that true characters transcend the medium that creates them, that artistry isn't about using the latest technology, it's about understanding human nature so deeply that the method of expression becomes irrelevant. Irving Thalberg learned something that day in the boardroom. The most dangerous words in any creative industry are, "This is dead," and "Audiences want something different." Audiences want good stories well told. The format matters less than the humanity. Charlie could have taken the easy path, abandoned his greatest creation for guaranteed success. Instead, he defended the tramp, not out of nostalgia, but out of conviction that some characters represent something larger than entertainment. They represent truth about the human condition. When executives tell you your work is obsolete, you have two choices: abandon what makes you unique, or prove them wrong by making it undeniable. Charlie chose proof. 4 minutes in a boardroom, one last silent masterpiece, and decades of vindication by audiences who discovered that silence can speak louder than sound. The tramp never died. He just waited for the world to remember that the best stories are told not with the newest technology, but with the oldest understanding. That dignity, hope, and love are languages everyone speaks, regardless of whether they make a sound.